"Did you throw it away?" my husband asked angrily, his face flushed with rage. "The $1,500 watch my father gave me for our daughter's birthday?" "Yes," I replied calmly. "I tossed it in the trash, and I do it again." His eyes narrowed, and his irritation boiled over. "Are you crazy? Have you completely lost your mind?" "Maybe," I shrugged, "but the issue isn't with me. Take a closer look, right here." I pointed to a specific spot on the watch in his hand. David hesitated, but finally complied. His expression shifted from anger to confusion, and as the truth revealed itself, the color drained from his face. "My name is Nicole, and I am 29 years old. David and I were married a year ago, and unfortunately we live with my in-laws in their house. My father-in-law never misses an opportunity to put me down. You're not even good at making tea," he loves to tout. "Every day is a living hell. I would pray that I would wake up from this horrible dream." My husband and I went to the same high school and re-met at our reunion. He confessed that he had always loved me, and we began dating before getting married a year ago. I was so happy. I loved David, and I was so excited about our life together. As long as he was by my side, I would always be taken care of, and I thought I would be part of a beautiful family. But now I realize that these thoughts were very, very naive. After we got married, I moved in with my husband and my in-laws. I discovered that my father-in-law was a very troubled man. He was very old-fashioned, a misogynistic man, the type of man who would never dream of making his own tea. According to David, my father-in-law told my mother-in-law, "It's wrong for a woman to disobey a man." Once he even threw a plate at her for going against him. I was surprised when I heard this. I couldn't believe it, but it was true. In fact, I started to notice that my father-in-law was quite the xenophobe. He was very critical of me, an immigrant from abroad. I was working as an interpreter, speaking both English and Japanese. Maybe it wasn't because I was a foreigner. Perhaps it was because he didn't think very highly of me in the first place. In any case, he blamed me for everything and spoke ill of me. I love being an interpreter. It's a job where I feel my skills are most useful. Although there were assignments where I had to be on the field, most of my work was done at home for interpreting meetings. I was very good at my job, and I did not appreciate that my father-in-law always insulted my work. When he went on, I would think to myself, "What's wrong with you hating someone just for speaking English, just because they're a foreigner?" He often muttered under his breath, "I can't stand foreigners." When I overheard him, I just wanted to cover my ears. He thought that because I was from a foreign country, I wouldn't be good at tea ceremonies or cooking a proper meal. But I have lived in Japan and love Japanese culture. I even took care to learn Japanese manners. One day I looked at my father-in-law and said, "Even though I'm from another place, I live in Japan and I love Japan. Your behavior is embarrassing." "Embarrassed? Who should be embarrassed?" he retorted. "I thought you should be ashamed of saying those heartless words to me just because I'm from another country." But even though I was annoyed by my father-in-law's words, I kept my mouth shut. I thought that, even though he said such horrible things, he was David's father, and I should just put up with it. At first, I believed that just because he hated me now doesn't mean he wouldn't learn to like me over time. Even though he couldn't look at me without a scowl, or try to get to know me because of his prejudice, his words were sarcastic and hurtful every day. "I'm going to teach you to be Japanese the right way," he said, giving me jobs around the house. There was cleaning and laundry, but I also had to rub his shoulders. It made me very sad to think that my father-in-law manipulated us to move in with them just to make me miserable. Or at least that's what it seemed like. Although my mother-in-law apologized for him, she knew she couldn't say anything. I felt sorry for her and hated him for thinking he could control people and make them suffer. I hated my father-in-law for being like this. There were times I wanted to tell David the truth about his parents, but he was very busy with work and traveling a lot. I didn't want to worry him. "Hey, it's time to make lunch. Hurry up," my father-in-law called. Since I work from home, I was often home all day. My job doesn't let me take breaks whenever I want. Meetings I interpret can go on forever, and it's hard to take a break at a certain time. I wanted to have a late lunch alone, but my father-in-law had other ideas. "Hurry up," he demanded. He didn't care that I hadn't finished work yet. One time I tried to explain, "I have to work. so I want to eat lunch on my own time." He sneered. "This English-speaking job is not good for you. Don't you know it's customary to follow your in-laws' wishes? This is common sense. This is why immigrants are so annoying. They don't know such things," he said coldly. His words were unreasonable and tortured me. He made it impossible for me to concentrate on my work. His behavior escalated further. He ordered me to clean the room every morning and imposed rules like not getting up from my seat for lunch until everyone had finished eating. My father-in-law would also come into my room and interrupt me when I was working. "I don't want to hear English," he once yelled outside my room. It was hard for me. I had reached the end of my patience when his actions interfered with my work. If I didn't do something, I would lose my job. My heart was in pieces from his constant attacks on me and my mother-in-law. I couldn't take it anymore. I was so happy to marry David, the man I love. I thought that as long as I could stay by his side, I'd be okay, no matter how bad things got. But I was naive. I can't be with my father-in-law like this anymore. I'm not happy at all, I thought. Tears welled up in my eyes. It was so painful. That night I decided to talk to David about it, and I began crying. When I told him everything that my father-in-law had done to me, he was absolutely mortified. He apologized to me several times. "I'm so sorry, I didn't realize," David said, his voice trembling. "I swore I would make you happy, Nicole." David confronted my in-laws about my suffering, and they were angry with me. Then he made me a proposal. "Nicole, let's move out. We don't have to live with my parents. Let's buy an apartment and live together," he suggested. "Are you sure?" I asked hesitantly. "Of course. I think it is the best thing for the two of us from now on," David reassured me. I was really happy. I felt like I had seen the light in the darkness. I felt reassured, and I was happy to have married this man. So, David and I moved out of the house. After we moved out, I never saw my in-laws again. Since David gave my father-in-law a hard time for how he treated me, he didn't do anything to me anymore. Life had returned to normal. I was soaking in the happiness of being able to spend my time freely and concentrate on my work every day. I realized that I had taken for granted the happiest thing in my life. 1 year later, I became pregnant. David was happy. He was full of happiness. "Mom and Dad seem happy too," he said one day. "David seemed to have told my in-laws about my pregnancy." "Well, that's great," I replied, forcing a smile. Even though I smiled outwardly that my in-laws were happy, my heart sank. It had been a year since that hellish day, and yet I still felt so bad when I remembered what my father-in-law had done to me. "Just because we're having a baby doesn't mean you have to see my parents," David assured me. "I don't want to do anything that will make you feel bad. The most important thing is the baby and you, Nicole." Then I safely made it to the day of the birth, and a healthy baby girl was born. I cried as she squeezed my hand with her tiny hands, and she loved me so much. It was as if all of the pain I had been going through was nothing. "You know," David said one evening, with an expression that made it difficult for me to say anything, "can I let my parents see her alone? They were so happy when I told them she was born safe and sound, and I wanted them to see their little girl." Then David continued. "I'm sorry," he added quickly. "I told you didn't have to see them." I shook my head at David's words. "It's totally fine," I said. "I understand how you feel. It's natural to want to let your beautiful daughter meet your parents, and even though my father-in-law did such a terrible thing to me, I know that he cared for you. I wanted to fulfill your wish because I know how important they are to you. It's been a year since then. I'm sure your father-in-law has reflected on what's happened, and I wish I could see him too," I concluded. When I said this, David put on a big smile. "Yes, that was a year ago, and people change. Let's think positive," I told myself. On the day I left the hospital, David, my daughter, and I were on our way to my in-laws' house. I had not seen my father-in-law since then, so I was a little nervous. When we arrived at my in-laws' house, they greeted us with smiles. Seeing my father-in-law looking a little happy as he looked at his little granddaughter, I felt relieved and, at the same time, glad that I had brought her with me. David also looked happy, and my father-in-law didn't seem to be making any sarcastic comments to me, which was a huge relief. Thank God, I knew my father-in-law was sorry for what he had done. Then my father-in-law brought out a gift-wrapped box, and held it in front of me. "Here is a gift for the birth of your child," he said. "It's a $1,500 watch. Please put it on display." I was surprised that my father-in-law had prepared such a gift for us, but I was even more surprised by how much it cost. I had never heard of a watch costing $1,500. My mother-in-law, who was standing next to me, was also surprised, her eyes widening. "Don't be surprised," my father-in-law said. "It's my way of thanking you for letting me see my grandchild." I was very surprised, but I was genuinely happy that my father-in-law had given me a gift. Maybe my father-in-law and I were finally starting to understand each other. My heart was filled with joy at the thought of my father-in-law's approval. After returning home, David and I immediately opened the gift celebrating our new baby from my father-in-law. "Huh?" we both exclaimed, surprised to see the watch. It looked like an ordinary wristwatch. We were taken aback because we had imagined a $1,500 watch would be much flashier. We wondered why this watch cost so much, but since it was a baby gift from my father-in-law, we thought nothing more of it and decided to put it on the shelf in the living room. The phone rang. It was from my father-in-law again. Ever since we received that watch, he'd been calling us a lot for a little while. At first, the calls were about wanting to hear about his granddaughter, but then, just like a year ago, he began to speak disparaging and accusing words about me. Even when I got fed up and ignored his calls, he would call again and again. Eventually, my father-in-law started pointing things out about my behavior. "Do immigrants only clean once a week?" he sneered. "You only had Japanese food for 2 days this week. This is why foreigners are no good." Strangely enough, he was also right. "How did he know that?" I asked David one day. "I have no idea," David replied, looking puzzled. I was scared. It felt like everything my father-in-law said was true, and the points he made were getting more and more specific day by day. I was exhausted from childcare, work, and my father-in-law. I was in pain and agony, and even cried. How can I get away from my father-in-law now? I thought. I had escaped him by moving out, but now he still torments me like this. It felt like I was going crazy. You would have to be there to see this kind of thing. I felt goosebumps all over body at that moment. I tried to analyze the recent events involving my father-in-law. I realized I was in an uproar when I understood what had happened, and I couldn't stop my body from shaking with fear. It was something I couldn't even imagine. Then I looked at my child, who was sleeping peacefully, and thought I had to protect her. I made a decision to do something, even though my body was trembling. That night, David came home from work with the watch in his hand. He looked angry. "You threw it away? The $1,500 watch my father gave me as our daughter's birthday present?" "Yes," I nodded. "That's right. I threw it in the garbage and I would do it again." David became even angrier at my response. "You're an asshole, you know that? Are you insane?" "I guess you could see it that way, but I'm not the problem here. Let me show you. Why don't you push this button?" I pointed to the black dot on the clock in David's hand. The clock that my father-in-law had given us had a little black button on it. David angrily complied. As I said, his complexion changed. "What is this? Was the button a reset button?" he wondered aloud. "It's not a button. No, it's not a button. Take a closer look." David observed the small black spot, just as I had said, and the look on his face became more and more disturbed. "Camera," he muttered, absolutely lost in thought. Yes, there was a hidden camera attached to the watch. He had to look closely to see it, so he hadn't noticed it until now. My father-in-law had been watching us with that camera for a long time. The reason my father-in-law knew my every move in detail, and even knew exactly what was on the menu for dinner, was that he had been watching me the whole time. I was horrified with him for doing this. I had a professional take a look. I even had it debugged. "It was all your father's work," I concluded. For a while, David froze in shock at my words, but soon his eyes became determined. "Nicole, I'm really, really sorry," he said. "I'm sorry I put you through this again. I'll never forgive you, Dad." The next day, David and I left our daughter with my parents and headed to my in-laws' house. As soon as we arrived, David went to my father-in-law, put the clock in front of him, and said, "Dad, why do you think we're here? You do know why, don't you?" David's eyes were filled with anger. My father-in-law's face scrunched up a little at the sight of David's temper. "What are you talking about?" he said blankly. "What are you talking about?" David snapped. "You're crazy to give us a wristwatch with a hidden camera and a wiretap on it." But my father-in-law insisted. "I don't know." "Oh yeah, so that's why it cost $1,500. But I had no idea." My father-in-law would never admit it. I could feel my anger rising at his refusal to confess. "Do you have any proof, any evidence that I did it?" My father-in-law grinned at me. David and I exchanged confused glances. "I'm sorry you have no proof, but I'm going to have to ask you to pay the price for my broken heart. You're the one who's going to pay that fee," he added firmly. My mother-in-law, who had been silent the whole time, decided to intervene. "You're the one who's going to pay that fee," she retorted, glaring at her husband. "Because I am divorcing you." "What? What are you talking about?" my father-in-law asked, slightly upset, though he didn't seem to take it seriously. That was unsurprising, as until now, my mother-in-law had never disobeyed him in any way. "I told my mom in advance what you did," David added. "After our son told me, I had a look at your room," my mother-in-law continued. "What?" My father-in-law, who had looked relaxed a moment ago, was becoming impatient. "I wanted to think it was a lie, too. Eavesdropping and photographing is a crime, you know. But in your room, there were videos of David and his family and his house and so on. I can't believe you really did this," my mother-in-law added, her voice trembling with anger. My father-in-law was seeing red. David questioned him further. "I asked my mother to find receipts for that watch here." David put the receipts and order forms for the watches in front of him. "This watch is custom made. You ordered a hidden camera and a wiretap, didn't you? I have solid proof right here," he remarked. My father-in-law, realizing there was no point in denying it, confessed everything. "I lost the chance to tell Nicole how disgusted I was with her, so I thought I'd watch her behavior on camera," my father-in-law admitted. Everyone in the room who heard these words felt a surge of indescribable anger. After that, my mother-in-law divorced him. My father-in-law had to pay alimony, and since the house belonged to my mother-in-law's parents, he was evicted and now lives alone in a small apartment. My mother-in-law revealed that she had been enduring unreasonable orders from him for David's sake. But when she saw me being tormented, she became angry at herself for not having the courage to protect me. Finally, she decided to leave him. Now she lives freely and happily. My husband also cut ties with his father, and our family became closer. David, who used to work long hours, changed his job to spend more time with us. Since the incident, we've been able to communicate openly about any problem, big or small, and our relationship as a couple has grown even stronger. I'm happier now than ever before. Happiness comes in different forms for everyone, but I want to cherish my own happiness. It is wrong to sacrifice oneself for someone else's sake.